They're recruiting. Okay, so I'm Jenna. I know you, Brianna, in person, but I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm a current ETA who is interested or who's going to law school in the fall. Brianna's also interested in law school,
I
and
am.
so we wanted to talk to you along with a few other ETAs and just ask you guys some questions about your law school experience and like the transition um, from being a Fulbright to going and studying full time in grad school. I just have the questions that you sent, Brianna, and then do you want to just like start off and fire away, and then I'll add mine interspersed? Does that
Yeah,
sound good?
that sounds good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess one of my biggest questions is looking at the transition from being here in Korea as a Fulbrighter and then going back to the States and starting school within a month, and how did you handle that transition? What did you find was challenging or that helped you with it?
Jake, do you want to go first, or?
Sure. I actually didn't have that transition. I took off
Okay.
an extra year after my
Nice.
Fulbright grant. I actually stayed around in Korea for an extra 4 months. I studied at Yonsei.
Okay.
Um, and then I got a job when I got back as a paralegal, which I
Okay.
think was extremely helpful for the first year of law school because it really gave me a practical perspective
Right.
on what was going on.
Okay, so I did go straight from doing the
Okay.
Fulbright to law school, and it sounds like a very tough transition, but actually for me it wasn't too
Okay.
bad. Um, it takes a little while to, I think, be back in America, but that's a transition that everyone's gonna have to go through. Um, and I guess the biggest difference for me was getting used to the very different kind of work that you can be expected to do. Like, teaching is really high stress during the work week, but then
Hmm.
pretty relaxed on the weekends. And it's pretty
Right.
much the opposite here. Work is spread pretty evenly through all 7 days of the week, and you never really feel like you. Uh, there's always more to do, I guess.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you both, Judith and Jay, could you both like just give like a quick intro of like where you go to like law school and like what year you are, and if you have like any like extracurriculars or cool internships and jobs, that kind of thing.
Sure. I guess I'll start again. I'm Jake. I'm a 3L at the University of Chicago Law School. Um, I guess before I came to law school, I was a paralegal. I did mostly employment discrimination work. So a lot of Title VII stuff. And my 1L summer, I actually was the research assistant for the dean of the law school. And it wasn't anything legal. It was doing education policy. And I'll be doing corporate law in New York at
Cool.
one of the giant firms there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Judith. I am a 1L at Yale Law School, and I'm in the process of looking for a summer internship, which is pretty stressful. Um, and yeah, I guess there's a lot less set for me because it's my first year, but I am taking a ton of international law classes, and I think that's where I want to head.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Cool. Um, Brandon, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess especially for Judith too, but looking at like your first year, what have you found to be the most difficult aspect of your 1L year? Because I guess I have friends who are in law school too, and they all say a 1L year is the hardest. How have you
So,
handled it, or at least like kind of kept your sanity?
so I guess I'm curious, what do your friends say is the hardest part about it?
I think for them, it's really just the transition into law school and how almost the same as like going from high school to college. The first year is always going to be a transition, and it's something that's new and you're not really used to, and so you have to figure out how to balance your schedule and go do all the work you need to do and like balance all of that out. And it just takes some time to do that.
That's definitely true. And I think that this advice will definitely vary from law school to law school, so it
Okay.
can be useful to have Jake chime in here too. But I think here at Yale, one thing that I had some difficulty with was um, learning how to take advantage of all the resources that they have, especially coming from like a big school where I think the relationships between students and professors was really different. There were kids who had come in from maybe like smaller liberal arts schools or private schools who I think felt more um, they just felt more comfortable with asking for help and utilizing all the resources and talking to professors one on one, and that was something I had to get comfortable with fast. In addition
Right.
to doing all the actual schoolwork, it's like a really
Okay.
important piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So I guess I'll try and remember back to 1L.
Yeah.
So it's a little different at the University of Chicago because we only have one elective the 1L year, so everyone, all your classmates are taking the same classes.
Okay.
We also have the most granular grading system of any law school. It goes from 160 to 186.
Oh my God.
So the difference between a B average and an A average is basically 179 to 180.
Wow.
So the competition for 1L year, a lot of people get pretty cutthroat.
Right.
That's insane.
You're all doing the same thing, and the grade's on a curve so that every class gets graded. Like generally, people are going to do the same along that curve. So for you to do better, someone has to do worse than you.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is here is not getting caught up in the whole competitive thing.
Okay.
I mean, part of the stress, I think, is self-induced if you're a real high achiever, because, I mean, you'll come to this school having gotten nothing but A's for your whole life for a lot of these kids. Not me, but a lot of my classmates. And here, very few people get A's. I think by the time you graduate, the people with the A average is like the top 10% of the class, and everyone else is going to have a B average or below. So just realizing that no matter how hard you work, like there's a different standard, and that's like you don't want to be reaching for something you can't achieve. You just want to do as hard as you can, and not overwork yourself. I mean, there's other more important things, especially since a lot of the time in our classes, studying doesn't really help. It's not really about memorizing things. All the exams are open note. So everyone, makes a big outline with all the sort of black letter factual law. And the professors don't care that much about black letter law at this school most of the time.
Okay.
So it's more about sort of taking in the thought process and sort of, I mean, my 1L year, I basically had a study partner, and we'd go into a room in the library and talk stuff out. And it wasn't like drilling each other on law or notes or anything. It was just sort of ruminating. And that was very helpful for me.
Okay. That's cool.
Is it kind of jumping off like what you were saying about the competitiveness? Like, is it hard to like make friends, I guess? Or is it hard to like tune that out? Like, I went to like the least competitive undergrad school in the nation, so I'm a little bit nervous for next year.
I went to a big state school and majored in
same.
Mandarin, and there was nobody working super hard in the Mandarin department.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not used to that, and I never really thought like it bled outside of law school too much. I mean, I feel like some people maybe have some like passive aggressive anger towards each other, or like if they think you're like being a gunner in class and raising your hand all the time or something. But like, I don't know, everyone seems pretty cordial. I mean, it's a small school. It's like only 200 kids, so per class. I mean, everyone knows each other. Like cliques form. It's kind of high school-y. I mean, we even have lockers.
Oh wow. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't had any problem meeting people. I mean, even though it's hard, you're 1L year, it's good to do extracurriculars and like get your head out of the schools. Like I volunteered at the local, at a neighborhood center, so I taught lessons, basically. It was a nice throwback to Fulbright on constitutional law and things like that for kids. And I helped organize some events for the China Law Society.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
I think so. It's interesting because I think it's similar in a couple ways. Like I think the class size is around the same, but we don't have grades. It's definitely the other end of the spectrum. Our first semester was just pass fail, and then we transitioned into a system of like high pass, pass, low pass, but no one low passes ever. And I think it contributes to it's like a very collegial environment. I was really scared that it would be really competitive and hard to make friends, but that hasn't been my experience at all. It's been pretty chill.
That's awesome.
That's cool. So going on to extracurricular stuff, how did you find a balance between your schoolwork and your extracurriculars that you wanted to get involved with? Like, did you just try a little bit of everything, or did you try one or two things and stick with that? Like, what would be your recommendation?
Judith, do you want to start with this?
Sure. I guess this semester, or last semester too, I realized that like work comes first, in my opinion, and then you build your extracurriculars off that, and you find that it's I think if you build up slowly, it is not too overwhelming.
Okay.
If you, especially because you can always scale your extracurriculars back if you need to, but
Right.
your classwork, like, and your grades are there forever, and professors, especially with the classwork, they can extend your deadlines, and it can be a little more lenient, but you definitely have more leeway to work with extracurriculars in terms of scaling the amount of time necessary as according to your current needs. So last semester I did a bunch of extracurriculars, and they can also talk about the way this is at Chicago. But I think here it's split into like groups that give like I'm in Yellow Women and the Asian American student group, and they just like ply you with resources and parties and stuff like that. I think in terms of those kinds of extracurriculars, you should feel free to participate in them as much as possible. And then on the other side of the coin, there are extracurriculars where it's you putting your time and effort and work and volunteer hours in, and those definitely helpful to invest in some, especially in the areas that you think you want to work in or you're interested in doing a summer job in. For
Okay.
me, applying for summer jobs, it's been really helpful to already have some of that experience under my belt.
Experience from the extracurriculars you're in?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I, as a 1L, was like, how am I supposed to know what I want to do in law after I graduate? Like, there's no direction. Like, I have to take these basic classes on sort of like the first principles of law in my first year. And it doesn't really teach you anything about law or what to do during the summer. And they have all these organizations. It's like law and technology, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know the basics about law. What am I going to do in that student organization? So I sort of focused more on doing stuff outside the law school in my student organizations. I did join the China Law Society, and we like put together like a New Year's dinner with a couple professors that are into like constitutional comparative law and corporate law in China. But other than that, it was mostly just this volunteer thing to just get out of the law school. And although it's not like strictly an extracurricular, I'm like big in investing in people. So I tried to invest a lot of time of just, spending time with my classmates, doing stuff. I went out maybe once every other week. We have like a weekly trip to a bar called Bar Review. Yeah, I think that's pretty law school standard. So I gave myself time to like have some fun and meet people. Because if all you did was like study and stuff like that, you never would meet people in the other law school classes. Especially since we don't mix in our normal classes. It's just like the first year classes. And yeah. I think that's it.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
So, is it hard, like, I guess this is kind of like Brandon's like first question, but like what I guess was like your like the hardest part of like I guess law school in general, and like is it hard to like strike a work-life balance? Because I know like in Korea like it's like pretty easy like for me at this point, like I go to school, then I like come home and like relax all night, and like I have the weekends to myself, but where I don't really think about or like that much lesson planning, but like I guess it's probably very different, like from a grad school perspective. So, can you speak to like challenges, work-life balance?
Yeah, it's hard. I think especially it's like I mentioned before, it's because you feel like there's always one more thing to do, or there's always a little more studying that. Like like I could study for another 3 hours today from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. That would be okay. I think the biggest difference from Korea is that in Korea, your schedule for your activities, or when you get home from school, like this um, you have to kind of take the initiative and dictate your schedule and um, define areas or times of the day or times of the week that you dedicate entirely to relaxing or socializing. It's like what Jake said earlier. Like taking the time to get to know your classmates outside of the classroom, and you just have to that happens. A lot of people here like exercise a lot, go to yoga class, um, stuff like that, and it helps to have like scheduled times of the week.
Cool.
But it's hard, right?
Yeah. So for me, it was like not being used to this sort of competitive thing, and also having. I mean, I worked for a little bit before Fulbright. I worked for a little bit after. I did a bunch of stuff in Korea. I didn't really know what I wanted from law school, so I felt like I really couldn't justify, studying till midnight every day when I didn't really understand what sort of marginal difference it would make in the outcome. The employment statistics for a lot of the, I don't know, it's top something X number of schools are pretty high. Like if you want a job at a law firm, you get a job. With the difference between the law firms, even that, having worked at one and interviewed with a whole bunch, I'm not even really sure what the difference is. To me, it seems like a firm's a firm. They all generally pay market rate and things like that. It's unclear what the difference in work opportunities are. So I think before going into law school, as hard as it is, sort of understanding what you want to get out of it is very important. I worked as a paralegal doing litigation work, and as much as I like doing civil rights stuff, the employment discrimination stuff, I decided I didn't want to be a litigator. It was just too contentious. Judges were really a pain. I knew I didn't want to do that. So the people that really want to go into high-end litigation have to, well, are sort of expected to clerk for a judge. And I think that's sort of where your grades really matter, is impressing these judges to get the clerkships. I knew I didn't want that. So for me, it was less about grades and more of sort of getting what I wanted to get out of it. So as opposed to like studying stuff in the class, I ended up my first year just like reading law review articles and stuff like that, trying to understand like what's interesting in law, what should I be doing when I get out of here. And I know that's probably wasn't typical of my classmates, because a lot of them, I mean, especially if you're straight through, you've sort of used grades as your metric of success in life up to this point. It's easy to just keep going and collecting gold stars, but I'm not about that.
And what is it that you like wanted to get out of law school? Is it like corporate law or
Um,
or like what did you find, I guess?
so I'm not even sure I would want to stick around and do corporate law. Um, the things I sort of found really interesting um, was more so like the business side of law. Um, so I've ended up taking a lot of classes on like private equity stuff, uh, like doing valuations and how that filters over to the law side. Because a lot of the times, like the lawyers, having worked in the summer, especially with my other classmates, my office mate was a JD MBA, so he really understood what was going on. But if I was on a transaction with other summer associates, a lot of the time they couldn't really understand what the objective was. It was just sort of like going through the motions. Um, and I don't know, I never worked in sort of like corporate America, so I didn't really know what was going on. But I found that kind of interesting. So I've sort of shifted over that side. I mean, if I were to say like the most interesting thing in law school I've studied so far, it's got to be public choice, which is not even law, but has sort of a lot of applications in law. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in law school I think you should take the opportunity to sort of indulge yourself in academia, interesting stuff, because I know when I went to college I said I'd never go back to school, but this is probably the last time I will be in school. Don't hold me to it. So, I mean, I took silly stuff. I took admiralty law. That was awesome. I'll never practice admiralty law, but it was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I guess I have a slightly different answer because when I came into law school, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do law. It was because I had worked on the Hill, I worked in the Senate, and a lot of the older staff in the senators were telling me that if I wanted to work in politics, I should go get a law degree, like statistics, because they thought it would help like round out the policy perspective. And so that's why I came originally. But I got here, I realized that I kind of I really liked, for example, constitutional law last semester, and I'm RAing for my professor now for constitutional law. And I hadn't expected to like that. I kind of expected to just get the mandatory courses over with, and then take policy oriented or international classes. Um, yeah, but so I'm kind of going the opposite way. When I came in, I hadn't expected to want to clerk or do anything traditional, but now it's not seeming that bad. Maybe I'm just getting brainwashed by Al. That's a possibility. Jake is nodding. But yeah, I've really been enjoying kind of the substantive law a lot. So again, all on else, I'm not exactly sure what I'm sort of thinking about what story it is.
Yeah, I just think that's funny. I was laughing because constitutional law isn't even a mandatory class at Chicago. I'm going to graduate without ever having taken on law. I don't know anything about the Constitution. As far as my professors are concerned, it's all made up.
Pretty much right.
That's fantastic. Cool. So going off that then, I guess with both of you, what do you think have been the greatest skills that you've learned in law school? Like especially, it sounds like both of you kind of went into law school, not entirely sure you wanted to go into law or like specifically be a lawyer or exactly what you wanted even like out of it. So I guess either in like your first year or throughout all of law school, what have you gained from it, do you think, that's been really beneficial?
I guess I'll start. So at Chicago, they sort of drill you on the whole law and economics thing. So I've sort of been indoctrinated in it. I'll admit I'm a fan now that I've been in it. But it's really a set of critical thinking skills, sort of with its foundation in economics that has sort of a lot of applications in law and in other areas of social science. Like I was doing education policy with the dean of the school, and there was some like economic analysis of that. So it's they sort of drill you on how like, oh, this is applicable, in all kinds of fields.
Right.
The business leaders of yesteryear were JDs, not MBAs, which may be true, but now they are MBAs. So but I do think the critical thinking skills are really, really essential. I mean, as an undergrad, my major was Mandarin and my minor was Russian language and literature. So I didn't exactly go through critical analyses of things. Russian lit was more like being creative. There is an element of creativity in it, but yeah, I mean, there's a really good book that we had to read our 1 year. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll email it to you. But it's a very sort of brief primer on basically what all 3 years of law school at Chicago are like.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess here at Yale, it's a little different. Like our reputation, if Chicago is the law and econ,
Yeah.
is our reputation is kind of like the loose academic style. People joke that we don't really learn the law, and that's more or less true. But I guess the critical thinking is one thing I would say. I guess the more like nebulous thing that's hard to put your finger on is I think since I've been here, one really important thing I've learned is just choosing how choosing the hold on. I guess so. When you get to law school, people will tell you a lot of things like, oh, like you can do anything you want. Like the rules of oyster style kind of thoughts. And so it becomes really important to not choose the path of least resistance or the thing that like seems the most prestigious just because it's there in your head. I think it's really dangerous to kind of go down that path. It's like, oh, well, like people say I can do this, and people say it's meaningful and prestigious. So like, why not? I'm here. Would it be like a waste of an opportunity? And I think so one thing that everyone here at Yale really has to, I think, really has to internalize quickly is that there's no, just because an option isn't as popular or just because an option isn't as widely lauded or will get you a lot of recognition doesn't mean that it's not the right option for you. So it teaches you how to really kind of get in perspective and figure out what you want because you can do anything, which puts a lot of pressure, I think. It's a little counterintuitive. Like the more options there are, and like the more you have the ability to achieve, the more important it gets to figure out like is this really what I want? Like I have the power to choose this. I should take it seriously. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Totally. Just looking at my questions, I guess this is kind of just like a fun one. Like, what do you do to like I guess like relax or like what's been like the most like fun part? Like I know when I went to some admitted student weekends, like a lot of the alumni and like they could have just been like brainwashing us. Where like law school is like really fun. It's more fun than undergrad, so you should come here. And yeah, I don't know. Like, how has it been so far? Like, is it enjoyable? Like,
Oh, it's a blast. I love it. I think. But wait, Jenna, sorry, we should have asked you this earlier. Do you know where you're going already?
yeah, I'm going to Penn in the fall.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm not sure about the system at Penn, but at Yale we have small groups of like 16 people, and per semester you do all your classes together, and that's been my like core friend group here. And so for fun, we did up bars, we went out a lot actually, and I would say it's a great group of friends, like I mentioned before, not nearly as competitive as stereotypes make it out to be. Um, Comparable to undergrad, I don't know if I would. It's just very, very different because it's a professional school. So since you're all kind of on the same, it's like a lot more. I would say energy is a lot more focused on what comparing and contrasting what you guys want to do. Similar education like getting here, and that it's a different spin. I think on friendships and close friendships because in undergrad you all have different goals, and so friendship is based like a little less on in your future and like big life decisions. I don't know. What about you, Jake?
Um, yeah, definitely not as much fun as I had in undergrad. I had way too much fun in undergrad. Um, but yeah, admitted students weekend is admittedly a little brainwashing.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, I went to admitted students weekend as a 1L, 2L, and 3L because it's so much fun. um, so yeah, we also have like the small group thing, although I think that's less important now because we have a new orientation program where it's like 2 weeks of orientation before classes even start. I helped run it this past year. It's something that we borrowed from the business school, so it's one of the reasons why I'm one of the reasons I did it is being that strong advocate for investing in people and relationships. And so I think people sort of get their friend groups sorted out there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I do have fun. I went out, like, Chicago scales because it's on the quarter system. So like the first quarter is not that hard. I probably went out every week with everyone. Everyone probably went out. And then things get a little harder and it slows down. But yeah, I made sure to have my own time. Like, also I like having my own personal time. Like, I made sure to work out at least 2 times a week. So I went running, which in Chicago winter is a little tough, but you gotta figure out how to make it work. Yeah.
Cool. And then, Brianna, do you have any other questions?
I guess like probably one of my like biggest questions left is just thinking about how you've applied your Fulbright experience into law school. How has it either like helped you or like formed how you've like the path you've taken in law school or like the approach you've had to it? Have you noticed that it's helped you in any way? Or like how have you used it?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is.
I think being a teacher is just stunningly helpful for presentation skills.
Right.
Like I saw no difference when I was doing this orientation thing. So it was a lot of substantive orientation. So like it was half business school students, half law school students, and we had designed these modules that were basically classes, PowerPoints and all. And I thought it was almost indistinguishable from being at Cheongju High School in front of 40 boys teaching something. I mean, it's the same thing where like they don't really know what's going on. Got to keep it a little high energy. Got to keep it interactive. Got to present well.
Right.
And I was up there, and a couple of the B school guys were former consultants. And when they complimented me on my stage presence, them having done this as a career, that felt really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I've done presentations in some of the seminar classes.
Okay.
And I think Fulbright was just invaluable for having that sort of polished stage presence.
Cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the public speaking. Man, like, you don't really appreciate being able to talk English speakers until you start getting your time on the Fulbright. And
Okay.
it's like, wow, talking to you is so easy. I can like say something and point to the board, and you understand it right away. What a thrill, man. I think like stepping back from just like the substantive teaching skills,
Right.
I think it's also helpful for me having like I went straight from undergrad to Fulbright and then straight from Fulbright to law school, so that's all I did. And like the feeling of getting like tossed into a group of tons of new people who are like potential friends and coworkers and having to navigate a social system like that. I think doing that on the Fulbright and then coming here and doing it at law school, um, it helps a lot because you kind of do that your freshman year of college, but it feels like
Yes.
so long ago. And also just in terms of dealing with day-to-day stress, um, I don't know about you guys, but for me, especially the first 3 or 4 months of the Fulbright was incredibly difficult. I just felt like I really wasn't sure what I was doing, and I wasn't
Oh,
sure
yeah.
if my students were liking me, if they were understanding me, or taking anything away. And I think having to fight through that kind of uncertainty and inexperience and getting better and better and easier by second semester, um, it's really invaluable. Because, in law school you're going to have setbacks and you're going to have really bad days when your professors meet you. And I think having that kind of background knowledge in the back of your head, like, I've done something that's kind of made me feel something, and I can do it again. Um, I think it's invaluable. So.
That's awesome.
That's
Good.
awesome.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think maybe one more thing that probably comes from living in any foreign country and trying to speak the language is I definitely learned to be okay with sounding stupid in Korea, making mistakes. And I think that's really important in law school. I mean,
Okay.
if, you have to ask questions, and, sometimes your thinking just doesn't click with what's going on, and you can't be afraid to sound stupid. Like, the people who are afraid to raise their hands probably get a lot less out of it. And that's like not to say, every thought you have is worthy of interrupting the class, but like you have to not be afraid of approaching a professor and talking things out.
Okay.
That's
I
awesome.
think on the flip side of that, one thing I felt like I had to unlearn from Fulbright is the kind of the hierarchy of the Korean system. Like, just kind of referring to what the principal of my school said or to what Mrs. Shim says. That's something that I don't think necessarily serves you well at law school. And I think the professors that I've gotten the closest with and learned the most from are the ones where I felt relatively like they want to approach them as an equal. And if I could achieve that like if I could achieve that level of comfort, I felt like I got more out of that level. So different expectations, I guess, of student teacher or authority figure relationships.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was one of my goals in law school coming from big state school was to get to know some of the professors. And I've had drinks at a professor's apartment with a bunch of other students like 3 or 4 times now. And it's like a really cool thing. So I highly recommend breaking the hierarchy.
Yes, definitely. That's awesome. Okay, well, I think that all of my questions were answered. Brianna, what about you?
Yeah, mine are too.
Yeah, that was, and this I think is a great question to end on. So before we log off, I'm just going to stop the broadcast. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so
this
much.
was
It's so helpful.
No
And
problem.
then once I stop the broadcast, we can all kind of say goodbye and log off. Okay.